This is a video response to the Progressive Thinker. In his video entitled, Why Social Conservatism?, he asked for YouTubers to expound on the subject of universal values and their use in the government, specifically asking what makes a value worth pushing in society, even if everybody doesn't agree with it. First of all, I'd like to say I don't think it's the government's job to push anything, and as a social conservative, I would not ask the government to push my line of thinking simply for the reason that it's my line of thinking. I do believe, however, that the government must acknowledge universal values in their making of laws, and I expect the basis of their system to be one that follows the principles and laws of morality that our country was based on. To me, what makes a value universal is honestly when it's dictated by the God who created the universe. Without God, I don't see there can be any basis for any moral laws. For example, if we needed to have if we indeed have a natural instinct to die for our friends, there isn't anything to tell us whether to indulge that instinct or not. I mean, we also quite obviously have the natural instinct to make war and kill. Christianity was acknowledged as the basis for thought on values by America's founding fathers, whether they were necessarily Christians or even theists for that matter. The merit of Judeo-Christian principles was clear to them as they saw the limit of government and realized that rules set by the government would fail if not backed up by a moral ground, indeed an unchanging moral ground ordered by a creator. They also smartly realized that the act of forcing acceptance of a specific church would not work and would violate freedom of religion, but ultimately knew that a recognition of some form of God, whatever each man called it, must exist. On another point now, the progressive thinker mentioned about how if 50.01% of voters feel a certain way, everybody else shouldn't be subjugated to their line of thinking. Frankly, we are talking about the society's overall values, and this is a nation by the people where the majority wins. If the majority of the public wants to preserve the sanctity of institutional marriage or protect what they see as the rights of an unborn child, they are just as free to vote that way for the upholding of their society as the people are free who choose the kind of lifestyles that bring up such issues in the first place. The government cannot enforce total obedience to God's biblical law in terms of lifestyle, obviously, but it can, for example, uphold God's design for the family, based on the majority of vote. I have two main things I would like to now question the progressive thinker on. First, in regards to the government pushing things, wouldn't he have to see it as a crime for the government to push social conservatives to accept things that their beliefs dictate as wrong? How can he claim that the point of progressivism is that the government stays out of our personal lives when progressivism pushes for laws in the name of freedom that force me to deny my faith? How can I be expected not to care about the actions of others when they directly affect the society I'm going to raise my children in? Secondly, does the progressive thinker himself recognize any universal values? If he does, what basis does he find for their choosing, apart from any shreds of Christian principles he has absorbed from society? Is morality progressive? If so, how can it ever be valid? In closing, I don't see that conservatives are asking for the government to push their point of view on the daily lives of choices and individuals, but I do think they should expect it to support an unchanging and ultimate moral reason behind the laws of our land, as we believe that such ideals are the only reason our country has succeeded and can continue.